Well, hello there. My name is Ian, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So today, Jonathan Cornell from Immersive Audio Album is back, and we are going to preview the upcoming 5.1 and Dolby Atmos surround releases in general that have been announced either for the summer or early fall. And up first, we're going to fill in a gap that wasn't covered in our last surround preview video. And this is the Grateful Dead's The Workingman's Dead album. Now, I haven't had a chance to hear this yet, though I'm excited to. I think the important thing to note, though, is that this is not a Steven Wilson mix. The previous release, Blues for Allah, was. Now, who is doing this mix, Jonathan?
So this mix was done by Mickey Hart, who's one of the members of the Grateful Dead. He's one of the two percussion players.
Okay.
And he previously did a 5.1 mix of this album, like way back in the early 2000s, that came out on a DVD, which I've got in front of me. Mm-hmm. So he did 5.1s of this record and the American Beauty album, which is the one that came out after this. They were released in the same year, a couple months apart. So this Blu-ray has the old 5.1 mix that was done in 2001 or 2002. And it's also got a newer Atmos mix that came out on streaming services in 2023, I think. But this is the first time it's being released, in high res on physical media. So, of course, talking about Steven Wilson also, he did Atmos mixes that have only been released on streaming of American Beauty and of Europe 72, the live album. So I think the most exciting thing about this release to me is that it means that those could be released on Blu-ray eventually.
Yes.
Particularly the American Beauty mix, I think, is really phenomenal, and it would be great to have that on Blu-ray. I've never been a big fan of the old 5.1 mix of this album. I think it's kind of strange. Like, it's one of those kind of like some of James Guthrie's mixes where like you feel like you're in the middle of everything, but you can't tell where all the parts are placed. Like there's things sort of placed centrally in all the speakers. So it's sort of like a big stereo, if you will. I know some people like that term, some people don't. But the newer Atmos mix, I think, is quite an improvement. It's generally, there's a lot more separation. A lot of the times the vocals are mainly in the center channel. A lot of the layered harmonies, which are kind of a big part of the Dead sound, are in the heights, which is really, really cool. One thing I do think is very strange about the Atmos mix is that all the drums are usually in the side speakers. So it kind of feels like you're sort of at the drum kit, which I guess makes sense because it was mixed by one of the drummers. Like they were trying to give you that perspective. But it might be weird. Like I'm curious how it'll sound on because you're on a 5-1-2. Like if all the drums are coming out of the back for you, if that'll seem strange.
Be very quad-like.
Yeah, I mean, what's one of the Joni Mitchell albums, I think it was Court and Spark, is like that with all the drums in the back.
Yeah. Well, what's the one right before Court and Spark?
For the Roses.
Or no, wait, no, sorry, you're right. It is Court and Spark. I'm having.
Yeah, I think Court and Spark was the one with the drums in the back. So it's I would say, like, I did a review of this on IA. Like, there's a written review you can check out. But it's a unconventional but interesting mix. And for me, this is obviously it's a classic record. It's got some of the Dead's most famous songs. It's got Uncle John's band. It's got Casey Jones. But I've always preferred American Beauty. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I'm glad, they did this. The fact that they were able to release this on Blu-ray means that the Blues for Allah one must have sold well enough. So
yeah, and that introduced this Dead newbie to the band, and I really loved Blues for Allah, and just talking about it has me wanting to grab that and play it again. So I'm actually really looking forward to hearing this.
I mean, I would caution you only that Blues for Allah has more of like kind of a jazzy, progressive sort of undercurrent. Yeah. This is much more like Americana, country. It's definitely less experimental than Blues for Allah.
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, I'll keep that in mind when I give it a listen. But yeah, I'm just excited to dig into this record. To be honest with you, I've been really busy with work, so I haven't had a whole lot of listening time lately, which being busy is good when you're in our business. But yeah, I will probably play this. Well, I was going to say after the video, but I lie because I'll probably be listening to Unwrapped tonight. But yeah, I'm very happy to see that they're continuing to release these mixes on physical media, but we are now moving to today. This is, the date of recording this is May 15th. That won't be the release date. The release date will probably be the 17th or whatever Monday is, the 18th. But this next Quadio batch released today. So do you want to tell us about this, Jonathan?
Sure. So I've got, as far as analog stuff goes, I have the reels of 3 out of 4 of these. So I've got Randy Newman's Sail Away, which curiously was only released on one of these reel-to-reel tapes. Like there was never a quad vinyl of this album. And there was for the other Randy album, Good Old Boys, which has already been released as a Quadio. So there was a 4-channel LP of that. But whatever this one was only released on one of these tapes. So it's pretty hard to find. So I'm glad that more people will be able to hear it. And I've got Seals and Crofts, Diamond Girl, and Carly Simon's debut album from 1971. And then the last one, the Mongo at Montreux, I've never heard that before. I think it was only released on an 8-track, that quad mix. I've never heard it. So it's an interesting kind of obscurity, and I guess it's cool just for archival reasons to have a high-res transfer of the master tape out there. But of all these albums, I would say the one I'm probably most familiar with is Carly Simon's debut album, which is, I think it's not considered one of her more famous records. I think her next record was No Secrets, her next record, or was that 2 records later? Maybe Anticipation was her next record, and then No Secrets was her 3rd album. I don't know. Someone will correct me in the comments, but No Secrets is her most famous record. And for that one, they did an Atmos mix, and they also released the quad on the Atmos Blu-ray. But I think her first album is really interesting. It's one of those like sort of young songwriter, like before they were famous, trying all these different styles. I mean, people think of her music generally to be like a sort of a particular kind of singer-songwriter style, but there's a lot of interesting sort of attempts at other things in this album. Like there's a song called Just a Sinner, which is more of like a rock kind of piece. There's sort of country elements to it. It's an interesting record, and it's got a really good quad mix. You know, cool. Usually the Warner Electro Atlantic family of labels, the quad mixes were always interesting. You know, as we've talked about the Joni Mitchell ones, I talked about the Eagles ones with Mike in a recent video, but yeah, you know, your typical very spread out 70s quad mix. You know, sometimes the drums and bass are in the back, which you don't often hear, but it's cool. And I would say the same kind of goes for all of these, the ones I've heard. Maybe the Seals and Crofts one is a little bit more conservative than the Carly Simon and Randy Newman. But yeah, I think if you like these albums, you can't go wrong with the surround versions. They're certainly no less than interesting.
I think if I had unlimited resources, I would buy up every single one of these Quadio batches. But
it's just interesting to see like how much music was released in quad in the 70s. And
exactly.
Some of these like odd sort of forgotten titles that would never be mixed in surround today. But exactly. They did them back then. It's interesting for that reason alone.
Yeah, it just historically interesting, and I feel like it would be a great way to discover new things. But as it stands, there's just so much stuff coming out that I usually can't justify getting these because I don't know these albums. I don't really love these albums, but if I could, I would, because I do find this series very fascinating. And to tell you the truth, I always watch our friend Mike's reviews of them, even though I'm not interested in them really.
I mean, one of the ideas I was kind of kicking around with him, and maybe we'll do this at some point, is we'll do like a sort of best of Quadio video where we talk about what our favorite ones are, you know, of the albums released so far. Yeah. I mean, certainly for me, I mean, unfortunately it's out of print, but that Chicago box set has got to be the best, probably the best release in the series for me, just because I'm a huge fan of Chicago, and, you know, it's a 9 album set.
Sure. And but, the Joni Mitchell Quadio set, I do have that. Black Sabbath's Paranoid is fantastic. They're doing the Lord's work, so to speak. I think it's a wonderful series.
I mean, I wish all the other labels that controlled quad mixes would put them out like this.
Sure.
You know, there's tons of stuff under the Sony umbrella that hasn't come out yet. You know, when we did our quad video, we talked about those like Santana albums that they've done as the Japanese reissues, but there hasn't been one of those in a while. So you know, I would love it if they would do those as, you know, nice standalone Blu-rays that you wouldn't have to import from Japan.
Right.
And, you know, if you go over to the UMG side, there's tons of labels that they've gobbled up over the years that released stuff in quad in the 70s.
Yeah.
I mean, technically the in the Quadio series, the War albums were previously part of United Artists, which I think became a UMG thing, but somehow the rights of those have shifted to Rhino in recent years.
Yeah.
But anyway, we could digress about quad. But yeah, the Quadios are always fun to have. It's great to hear the vintage mixes because they are approached in quite a different way than the newer Atmos mixes tend to be.
Well, you know what my quad holy grail is, right?
Bitches Brew.
Well, yeah, but Roxy and Elsewhere. That's my quad holy grail.
Of ones that haven't come out yet, sure.
Yeah.
of ones we've heard, maybe Bitches Brew.
Yeah, well, Bitches Brew is like the best quad mix ever. But no, it's not like it is. It is the best quad mix ever. But yeah, I'm hoping that one day we get Roxy and Elsewhere as a standalone release, maybe with an Atmos mix coupled with it. That would be just to die for, really. So this is another release coming out on the day of recording, which is Friday, May 15th. And this is Bruce Soord's latest solo album, Ghosts in the Park. And I suspect that our viewers are very interested in this album. So you want to talk about it?
Sure. Well, I mean, for people who are familiar with, Bruce as the main songwriter and frontman for the Pineapple Thief, generally, like his solo work tends to veer a bit more acoustic than the Pineapple Thief stuff. I mean, the Pineapple Thief's music is still, I wouldn't call it like, maybe they touch kind of metal in some places.
Yeah.
But certainly their more recent output, like with Gavin Harrison, has been more kind of on the mellower side. But generally there's not a lot of like on the solo albums, like there's no drummer, like it's programmed drums that Bruce does himself. And usually that's coupled with like lots of layered acoustic guitars, lots of harmonies. The lyrics tend to be more personal in his solo albums as well. So I think if you liked any of the prior three, my favorite was particularly the last one, Luminescence. I thought was a really beautiful album.
Yes.
I think this very much, continues in that direction. This one doesn't have the string quartet on it like Luminescence did, though. Which is like, I do kind of miss that a little bit. That was one of my favorite parts of that record. But there's some great guitar solos on this album. The last track, Ghosts in the Park, the title song, is like this long 12-minute song that goes through all these different passages and things. So kind of old school prog in that regard.
Yeah, it's like Baker Street Muse.
Yeah. And I mean, as always with Bruce's stuff, the sound quality is just fantastic.
Yeah.
Like particularly like the stuff he records. The Pineapple Thief album, Versions of the Truth, is one of my like reference recordings that I like to play like whenever I go to another studio or something, just to hear how it sounds. And this is very much, in the same super crisp sounding guitars, powerful low end. Like this album sounds fantastic. Yeah. And there's the various different versions you get in the deluxe edition. So I think we might have mentioned this the last time we did one of these preview videos, but the deluxe set comes with a Blu-ray that has 3 versions of this album that are mixed in 5.1 and Atmos. There's like the regular standard album. Then there's a version where it's just Bruce's voice backed by piano, which is like, even more haunting than the regular one. And then there's an acoustic version where all the electric instruments are muted. So like, and the drums are muted as well. So it's just his voice with acoustic guitar. So 3 different versions of the album, all mixed in surround. I know some people are disappointed this isn't like it's like a $60 or $70, deluxe edition.
Yeah, but it sounds like you get quite a bit for your money.
Yeah. And the other piece of it is, I know people are asking for this because we did Luminescence as a download on IA, whether there will be an IA release. I think there will be.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't like definitively say so at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, I was hoping we might be able to have it out for release day today, but that didn't happen. But I think it will be. But if we do end up doing an IA release, and the reason why there would be a delay is because I think the label doesn't want the download competing with the physical version.
Sure.
K-Scope still does a lot of physical releases, but if we do the download version, it will probably just be the album proper. Like it won't have the piano version and the acoustic version. They'll probably want to keep those to the deluxe edition.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested to hear this, and I am privy to our Amazon affiliate data, and I think this is the second best-selling record through our Amazon affiliate link. So this is a good opportunity to mention that if you do intend to order this or any other title that you can get through Amazon, there will be a link in the description to purchase that. And if you do purchase via that link, it does support the channel in a small but meaningful way. So I really appreciate that. But I think that our plan is to review this at some point.
I mean, I'd be happy to. It's a great record, and
yeah,
great opportunity to just talk about briefly the other 3 Bruce solo albums too.
Sure. I liked Luminescence a great deal. I got the Pineapple Thief live Blu-ray. That's like the social distance live in the studio thing.
Oh yeah. Nothing But the Truth.
Nothing But the Truth. Yeah, that's very good. I've watched it maybe once or twice, but I liked it. But
that's like that's like a nice primer of kind of, because they do a bunch of songs from across the catalog to sort of get a feel for, you know, the various different eras of the band. Yeah.
And it's a really good set. So yeah, I'm happy to see that our viewers are interested in it for one thing. And, I'm kind of curious to check it out because I liked Luminescence a great deal. And, I think Bruce's mix work I think he's one of the very best. So that's a good segue. So this is, releasing today, the day of recording. And by the time this is out, I will probably heard it 3 or 4 times already because I have been streaming it today, so I do have some thoughts. But this is, of course, the Jethro Tull Under Wraps, the Unwrapped edition boxed set. And I think I've probably talked about this album, this box set, more than any other release on this channel so far. And when I said that Bruce's album was our second best-selling Amazon affiliate link, this is number 1. What is it? What is it about this album that has people so excited? Is it the controversy? What are your thoughts on this, Jonathan?
I don't know. I think it's one of those albums that, like, very obviously, like, would benefit from being mixed again.
Sure.
You know, a lot of people like to debate when these albums come out, like when they did even some of the later Tull ones, like, so say when, like, you know, Songs from the Wood was remixed, a lot of people were probably like, well, the original one sounded great. Like, I can't disagree with that. I mean, the only of the classic 70s run, like Aqualung was probably the only one that really was like sonically deficient, I would say.
And Minstrel in the Gallery, I think, always had a weird sound to it.
Yeah. But like, you think about some of the other things that have come out recently, like, and I'm like Jeff Buckley's Grace. You know, some people say that's like one of the greatest sounding records ever. Like, what would be benefited from, what would the benefit be of remixing it again? Obviously, for people like us who are interested in surround sound, that's the benefit.
Yeah.
But I think Under Wraps is one of those albums where you sort of get the sense that, like, the songwriting was stronger than the production.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I'm sure people will disagree with us and say, like, the original version sounded great. I'm sure there are people who are going to say they like the original better than these new mixes, as always happens with these things.
Tens of people would say that.
I mean, I personally, like, I would be baffled by that argument. Like, I would be interested to hear how someone could argue that, but I would strongly disagree with it.
Yeah.
And I think aside from that, it's just an album that obviously would benefit a lot from having surround sound. You know, there's so many different layers and things that you could spread out around the room. And I think it's probably Bruce's best surround mix, like, of anything he's done, including his own work.
Well, I was listening to the stereo mix actually right before we recorded. And this has always been a B tier. If you know, if a Passion Play and Songs from the Wood and Aqualung are all S tier albums for me, this is like a B or even a high C tier Tull album. It's not their best, it's not their worst. It's audacious, you know, I'll give it that. But
I mean, I'm kind of stealing from you. Like, I think it was you, I'm paraphrasing. You said, like, it's kind of the last one that's really audacious.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Although, I mean, you could make an argument for Roots to Branches, but to me, this is the last classic Tull album because this is the point where the voice breaks and everything after this sounds very different in the vocal department. But I have to say, listening to this mix, even on streaming, just in stereo, I was getting chills. I was just hearing so many things that I've never picked up on before. Number one, Peter John Vitesse is a much proggier keyboard player than he's been given credit for. And I remember reading in, I think it was the Broadsword book, that Keith Emerson is his hero. And I've never been able to really figure that out before just by hearing him play until now. I also think that, obviously Martin Barr says this is his favorite Jethro Tull record, and some people think he's being a little bit of an edgelord or something. But listening to this new mix, I hear just how creative his guitar parts were back then. And oh man, I get it now. I get why Martin would love this, because this material allowed him to stretch his imagination quite a bit, flex his muscles quite a bit too. I hear a lot more Dave Pegg, who's always been a wonderful bass player. He's MVP of whatever band he's in. As for the drums, I wasn't necessarily sold right away on Lap of Luxury, but having heard the rest of the album, I think the drum reprogramming, the what do they call it?
Triggers.
Yes, the word was there. I think the drum triggers are extremely successful, and especially a song like Apogee. To me, it makes it sound more like the live version, which is what I always wanted. So far, I'm really impressed by this mix. Maybe Ian Anderson's vocals are processed in a way that are going to take me a little bit of time to get used to. And as you were explaining, that's like a Bruce signature, right?
It seems to be, just kind of based on what I've heard in his mixes of, for his own stuff and for other bands. Generally, like, vocals very dry, very upfront, seems to be kind of a style thing with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, to me, it's not harmful. We talk about compression sometimes, and it's automatically, we talk about compression, that means it's bad. But you and I are audio engineers. Compression is a tool. And I think in this case, the compression makes it easier to understand what Ian Anderson is singing, and the lyrics are more discernible. So I think I'll get used to it. It's just because it's different from what I've heard before. But so far, I think this mix is a resounding success, and I absolutely cannot wait to hear it in Dolby Atmos.
Yeah, I think the Atmos mix is what really kind of brings it over the top for me. But certainly this is not like, people like to talk about, for some of the mixes that Steven Wilson has done for Tull, like it's just kind of like sort of cleaning up some of the dirt, like just sort of presenting a clearer picture. This is kind of like, let's really change things.
Let's play.
And it does sound different. There are instruments that stand out that were buried in the original. There's a couple spots where they might have used alternate takes. I think people pointed this out when the Lap of Luxury single came out. There's a couple spots where the vocal sounds a little bit different. Yeah. So I think Bruce was given creative license to really play with this, because I don't think the original mix was like sacred to anybody for this album. Maybe for tens of people, as you say.
There's a finger wagger on the Hoffman forums who like to have a word with you. But aside from that guy, I would agree. Yeah, this was never a mix that was beloved. And I think that if any Tull album was going to get this kind of like fast and loose, let's have fun with it treatment, it was going to be this one. And
if that was the treatment for, say, like Aqualung, I could understand why people would have their pitchforks out. Though really the remix of Aqualung does sound quite different from the original, just in how startling the clarity difference is. Yeah.
I would agree. Well, I'm absolutely ecstatic to hear this.
And you got to hear Walk Into Light also.
And I still have to hear Walk Into Light, and I'm really excited to talk about this with you. So we will be reviewing this album, hopefully sooner rather than later. I literally saw a post on Progressive Ears where people were complaining about YouTubers, and somebody said, "Bah, I'll wait for Ian's review."
Really? Oh, that's great.
So that kind of made me feel good. But we have two more releases from today. I'm going to skip over one and get back to it, but this is also in my Amazon drop, which is moments away at the time of recording. And this is Kraftwerk's Radioactivity. This is a Kraftwerk record that I've never heard, but I love these guys. And I do think it's an interesting pairing with the Under Wraps album, that these would come not only on the same day, but together in the same package. So they'll probably be a part of my brain that associates them for the rest of my life now.
And
So,
the Autobahn mix was fantastic.
and that's one of the best Dolby Atmos mixes, bar none. So I can't wait to hear what they do with this. Are you familiar with this record at all?
No. The only records I was familiar with were Trans Europe Express and Autobahn.
Yeah. Well, Trans Europe Express is going to be sick. I can't wait.
I mean, because of the nature of like what this music is, like you can really do crazy stuff with it in surround, like more than you could do with a regular like rock band. So
sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always the debate. Who's the more influential artist? Is it the Beatles or Kraftwerk? And, some people turn up their noses at even the mere suggestion of that. But this band is, I would say, undoubtedly the more modern band. Between, if you're going to say the Beatles or Kraftwerk, there's more modern music, I think, in these guys. Just for the slickness of the production, maybe some of the more minimalistic aspects of it, the fact that they weren't playing a drum kit, a bass guitar, a rock band setup, but they were using keyboards, samples, a band that are just, I think, always going to be a little bit ahead of their time. And I'm going to scoop up every single Dolby Atmos product that comes from these guys. I personally, I can't wait for Trans Europe Express. I think Man Machine is going to be phenomenal. Really just the prospect of hearing a 70s Kraftwerk album for the first time is enough. But you add in the Atmos quotient on top of it, and I think it's a must-have.
And they're on these nice, single disc Blu-rays that aren't too expensive. So there you go.
I think I paid $22 for it. So can't beat that.
That's how it should be.
How it should be. Yeah, I agree. And I hope they sell well. That's the important thing. So this is Alan Parsons Project's Eye in the Sky. Now, Jonathan has something to show.
Oh, I was just going to say I have my 2017 copy with the old 5.1 mix, which is also on the new Blu-ray.
Right. And I used to have that, but I sold it. And I sold it for like $150. And 2 days later, this was announced. And I felt so badly for that guy who bought it from me. Yikes. So have we heard this yet? I mean, what our usual spiel on Alan Parsons Project is that we're disappointed in them. But
so I don't know like what it is, because a lot of the 5.1 mixes he did like a few years ago I think are really good. Like I like the one for Tales. I think that's probably the best one of all the project albums they've done in surround. There's also an older record from the 90s called On Air that was released on one of those DTS discs. I should have brought that with me, but I don't have it in front of me. That was a really good mix. And then at some point, like I feel like Ammonia Avenue maybe was the first one where I was kind of like, this sounds really bright. And then they did Turn of a Friendly Car, which I thought was even brighter. And like that's sort of become like the house sound for these. Like they're very thin sounding, very bright compared to the originals. Like the iRobot one in particular, I was really disappointed in because that was one of my favorite albums by them. And like the original vinyl of that album sounds amazing. Or it's one of those records like that people would use to like test stereos. Like it was considered like a super clean like sonic benchmark, and for whatever reason, even though the surround mix is pretty creative and well thought out, it's just like so brittle sounding. So I'm hoping that's not the case with this one, because in theory all you'd have to do is just recall the 5.1 mix and just sort of pan things to the height speakers, right? So I would hope it would sound at least as good as the 5.1. I mean, I really like this album. I think the 1-2 punch of Sirius and Eye in the Sky is awesome. I think Silence and I is a really cool tune. There's a bunch of songs I really like on this record, and this was kind of like their commercial breakthrough, this album.
I don't like this one as much overall as A Turn of a Friendly Card, but there's some incredible songs on it. I have to say that the 5.1 mix of this was pretty brickwalled, and that's why I sold it. And I compared it to my my 80s CD copy that I stole from my mom. It was her copy originally, and I just never returned it. Borrowed it, never returned it. But I compared it to that, and the old CD copy just blew away the 5.1 mix. So unfortunately, Alan Parsons Project are on my no-buy list. But if it is available to stream, I might check it out. Now, I did hear from our friend Mike that the 5.1 mix of iRobot was a little bit better than the Dolby Atmos mix. I mean, in this case, they're including the legacy 5.1, so we know what we're going to get. But it would have been nice maybe if they would have included a new 5.1 mix here, just to compare to. But yeah, folks, if you're going to get this, you can let us know in the comments if we're making some horrible mistake. But thus far, the only Alan Parsons Project 5.1 that I've been completely happy with is Tales of Mystery and Imagination. And, you know, I thought Turn of a Friendly Card was okay. I know you're not a big fan of that one, but in terms of the mix.
It's interesting how we're kind of like, with this particular thing, like you think Friendly Card sounds good. I don't. I think Eye of the Sky sounds good, and you don't. It's interesting. I'm not saying anyone's like right or wrong. It's just unusual because we're usually pretty aligned on things, you and I.
Yeah.
But yeah, like even if you take aside like whether you put aside whether you think the mixes are too thin or bright or whatever, generally like the surround on these, I find them just like not particularly creative. Like it's kind of like, there's some stuff in the back, like there's some harmony vocals, there's an extra keyboard. I feel like there's a lot of moments in this music where like you could get away with like swirling keyboards around and things. Like you listen to one of these, then you listen to like a Steven Wilson mix and you're just like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But one thing I did hear recently, though, I read online, is that they're going to do the Eve album as the next reissue with Atmos. In fact, they're doing some kind of like open house where you can get tickets and like literally like he'll do the mix like in front of a crowd. I don't know.
Wow.
I read this on one of the forums a few days ago, but maybe someone should go to the thing and tell him that they think the mixes are too bright.
Okay, so we don't have a date for this one. I think this is like July 7th. Oh no, sorry. Nope. It's released May 29th. So this is coming out May 29th. We may have gotten this a little bit out of order, but that's all right. This is Supertramp's Crime of the Century in concert at Hammersmith Odeon, 1975. And looking at the track listing, I see that there are some songs put in the middle of the album from the following album, which I think is Crisis. What Crisis? So is that the next Supertramp record? Yes. So this is going to be an interesting little slice of Supertramp's history. I don't know if this video has been released before, and our commenters, I think, could tell us.
From my perspective, they're a band that often comes up when people ask like, what classic records do you want to hear mixed in 5.1 or Atmos? Crime of the Century, the studio album, is one that gets requested a lot. And sure. I know Ken Scott has said that he wants to do it. I'm not sure what the holdup is. Maybe it's they don't have the tapes for it. Maybe, it's difficult to get the band to agree on it. All the kind of usual things that hold up classic albums getting mixed in surround. But yeah. I mean, I'm curious, like, if it'll be one of those kind of typical concert mixes or if it'll be a little bit more adventurous.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Ken Scott is like a fairly adventurous Atmos mixer. I think he made some cool choices on that mix he did of Ziggy Stardust. So so I'm curious to see, what he does with this, and I hope it might lead to the studio album getting the same treatment one day.
Yeah, it is an odd choice that they do the live album first, but if this is footage that's never been released before or an unreleased performance, that's exciting to me. There's really no precedent for this either. So, usually this would have been coupled with a box set of the studio record or something like that. So, I don't think I'm going to pre-order it, but the good news is that it's coming out rather soon. So we will be able to see some reviews and stuff on the quad forums. So, if it has a good response from the quad forums, I might order this because I like Supertramp quite a bit. And this is, I think, my favorite. This one and Breakfast in America are my two favorites.
I was disappointed. Like back when they were doing the pure audio Blu-rays, they did Breakfast in America as a stereo only Blu-ray.
They did Crime of the Century as well. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was because, again, like they didn't have the tapes or they just didn't think it was worth doing a surround mix at the time. So
pretty sure the tapes aren't available, or I read that somewhere, but again, I could be wrong. I'd have to look into it to tell you for sure, or maybe it's just not known. Maybe nobody's looking for them.
There have also been rumors over the years that Crime of the Century had a quad mix that was never released, but I don't know. Like, I don't know what the originating point of that rumor is. Like, maybe it was in like an old tape catalog or something. But online, some people have been saying for years that supposedly there's a quad mix, but I don't know if. I guess if it would have been Ken Scott who did it or somebody else. I think maybe somebody asked him about it recently on one of the forums, because I know he's posted on the quad forum a couple times, and I think he said that he didn't know anything about it. So I don't know.
Yeah, interesting release, and yeah, one to look for. So now we are officially in June, and we are late June. So I'm assuming we might have some more announcements between now and early June, because it's like 18 days of 3 weeks of June that we don't have anything. But this is the latest in the Marillion Surround box set series, which takes more than a few visual cues from the Jethro Tull reissue series, the book set style. And we've already talked about this on like 2 other videos. So I would just encourage people to go watch one of those other 2 videos where we talked about it. But suffice it to say that both of us are, I think it would be true to say that both of us are a little hit or miss with it when it comes to the Marillion surround mixes. The 2 that were done by Steven Wilson are just phenomenal. What are they? Brave and Misplaced Childhood. The Clutching at Straws mix is kind of okay,
Yeah, it's such a shame that he didn't get to do Clutching at Straws, because I think he had said on an Album of Years episode that it was his favorite Marillion album, and it's my favorite Marillion album.
It's my favorite. That makes 3 of us.
Though, I mean, like Misplaced Childhood's like a close second. Like, that's also an incredible album.
Yeah.
But of the Steve Hogarth albums, like Brave might be my favorite. So I'm glad he got to do that one. Talk about an album that was really like sort of made to be mixed in surround, like all the sound effects and weird atmospheric things in Brave. That would be a cool one to go back and redo in Atmos. To this day, I don't think any of the Marillion releases have included Atmos. They've only been 5.1.
So this is the first Marillion Atmos?
I think it only has 5.1.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So I think all the recent, the ones from like the post Fish era, so like the ones with Steve Hogarth, have all been mixed by Michael Hunter, who's like the band's longtime engineer, producer. Of the ones I've got, I think he did the Afraid of Sunlight mix, which was like okay. Like, I would say good, but not great. And I also really like that album. So, yeah, I don't know. This is one of those ones where it's like, if I saw it in a store, if there was like a sale or something, I'd want to check it out. But it's not like pre-order level for me.
Of the 2 albums released in 1999 that are a bandname.com, this is the one I'm least interested in. And that is a clue for maybe later on in this video. Okay, so this is on the 19th of June as well. And this is Roxy Music's Flesh and Blood. And we were talking about this on the previous video. And since then, I haven't had a chance to listen to this record, so I have nothing new to add. But to kind of paraphrase what we said last time, this is the beginning of kind of the strain that involves Avalon and Bryan Ferry's early solo work, like Boys and Girls.
I mean, I would say really like all his solo work post Boys and Girls is kind of that super sophisticated, super clean sound.
Suave.
A lot of session musicians, like using all the best people. Yeah. I mean, I've been getting more selective with my SDE buying just because the shipping is getting, it's like you're paying upwards of like 50 a disc.
Yeah.
But I had to pre-order this one because I love Avalon, and this is kind of where that style started. And Bob Clearmountain's one of the best surround mixers.
Yeah.
So I'm very excited for this.
Me too. Yeah, I can't wait to hear it. And I'm guessing we will review this. We'll talk about it.
Yeah, I think so.
So on the 26th of June, this is Chris Squire's Fish Out of Water, the 50th anniversary edition. And we did touch upon this in the previous video. So again, go check it out. But this is Stephen W. Taylor's first Dolby Atmos mix. So we're really excited to hear what he does in the format.
And I think we agree that it won't be difficult to improve on the previous 5.1 mix of this album.
Well, I've never heard the previous 5.1 mix, but I'm not a huge fan of Jacko Jexic's work in general. And I'm sorry to say that publicly, but I've never really heard anything of his that made me go, wow.
Thrak?
In fact, his work that I have heard has left me extremely underwhelmed. Like you take his mix of the Tull, I can't think of what the venue was off the top of my head, but the Switzerland show from 1978, the one that is like the backbone of the Bursting Out album, and compare that to Steven's mix of the Bursting Out album, and just night and day difference. So
yeah, I think we talked about this last time we were talking about this album, but I like some of like his mixes of like his own music. Like he released a solo album during the pandemic that I think has a nice 5.1 mix. I think the Thrak mix has some really nice moments. Like I think Walking on Air sounds incredible in surround. Some of the heavier songs kind of like lose power.
Yeah.
Though I don't know if that's because of how separated the sounds are, because of like an EQ issue. So it would be interesting to hear somebody else take a stab at Thrak, like if and when they do Atmos of that. But the 5.1 mix of this album didn't work for me. I thought it was really bright sounding, kind of thin. So I'm curious to see what SWT does with it.
Yeah, me too. I've got this pre-ordered already, so I'll definitely be checking it out. So this is coming. This is coming in July. This is July 10th. This is the new Rolling Stones record, and it's in Atmos. What more can we say?
Cool. Yeah. I mean, we just had recently the reissue of Black and Blue that had Steven Wilson's mix, which I thought was great. Then before that, there was their previous newest album, Hackney Diamonds, also had an Atmos mix that was released on Blu-ray that Giles Martin did. And I would be guessing that maybe he also did this one, or maybe someone else has done it. I don't think it's been officially announced who did the Atmos mix for this upcoming album, but it's cool that it's getting a physical release. You know, this could just as easily have been one of those streaming only, you know, Atmos albums like most new records are. So
yeah,
cool.
Very cool. Well, good for Rolling Stones fans. This is like the last classic rock band that I don't think I've ever explored. And, you know, one of these days I'll take the deep dive, but like it's always a concern for me because I can't just do something a little bit. When there's a band with a huge catalog, I end up having to hear it all. So
for some of these bands we've been talking about, like the Dead, like you're going to be listening for a while.
That's what intimidates me about getting into the Dead. It's like, yeah, okay, I'll check out surround mixes, but I'm not going to go any deeper than that because that's a commitment. I mean, I'm a Frank Zappa fan. Like that's my commitment. I gotta pick and choose carefully. But so this is another SDE exclusive. And this is also coming out the 10th of July. And the thing to remind folks when we start talking about these SDE exclusives, and go ahead and copy and paste this onto our discussion of Flesh and Blood, their release model is very idiosyncratic, to say the least. And basically, Paul Sinclair just takes whatever the pre-order numbers are, and maybe he prints a little bit of overrun. But generally, once they sell out, they sell out. They sell out at pre-order. So if you're interested in these, you're going to want to jump on these very quickly. It may not even be available at this point. I don't know. But these are two Thin Lizzy records, and this is a band that I'm not super familiar with, other than I know that I think guitarist Snowy White was with Thin Lizzy before he joined Pink Floyd and Roger Waters' band. But so tell us what you know about these albums.
I would say, like, I bet you've heard some of their hits, like The Boys Are Back in Town. Like, I bet you've heard that on the radio or something. Yeah. But, well, actually, the 1976 disc, the one that has the Jailbreak and Johnny the Fox albums, that actually came out a few months ago, and they just repressed a bunch of them for this bundle. So the one that's new is the debut album, which is the one on the left in the picture. And in this case, I think for this particular pre-order, it's one of the ones where, like, it's like they're just pressing a set number of them.
Mhm.
It's like 1,000 or 1,500 discs, and when they sell out, they sell out, which is unusual because usually the SDE discs, like lately, the release strategy has been like 2-week pre-order window, and they just print as many as they get orders for. I think the reason in this case is because it's technically not exclusive. Like there's also a box set that has this Blu-ray in it.
I see.
So I think if you want to get the Atmos Blu-ray, like there's a different deluxe edition you can buy that has it, but this standalone SDE version is very limited. Probably because kind of like we were talking about with Bruce Soord, like they don't want to have the label doesn't want two conflicting products.
Sure.
So yeah, but I think I have the 1976 and I have one of the other albums that SDE was released. And like it's good, classic rock. Some great like sort of one of the cool things about Thin Lizzy was like the dueling guitar solos. Like they had these two guitar players that would kind of trade licks. The mixes that Richard Whittaker does for these, I think they're pretty good. Like they're, nothing amazing, but they open up the albums pretty well, and there's not like a ton to work with on these records compared to some other stuff from the era, but
Sure.
they're enjoyable. And if you like the music, they're worth checking out.
I think Richard Whittaker is the de facto guy for hard rock, and he does great work in stereo. I haven't had a chance to review it, but I did pick up his new mix of Robin Trower's live album from 1975, and that's a case where it was a legacy live album that came out with vocal overdubs, and it wasn't the complete show originally. And what Whittaker did is he went back to the original tapes and was able to reconstruct the concert running order. He removed fake applause, and so that it has a natural flow. And most importantly, he restored Jimmy Doer's original vocal takes, because with modern technology, he was able to pull some of the spill onto the vocals, like of the drums and the guitars and everything. He was able to pull that off the vocal track and clean it up, and it's astonishing work. He also recently did the Quadrophenia album by The Who. Now, did you have a chance to hear that?
Only on streaming. I didn't go for the Blu-ray of that, but yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I like the Steven Wilson mixes of Who Are You and Who's Next better, but sure. I also like those albums better. So it's not necessarily a. But as far as other stuff that Richard Whittaker has done, I really like his mix of the Pixies Doolittle record. I think that's good. The one for Bridge of Sighs is pretty cool. I mean, it's a very sparse album. It's a 3-piece, but I think he did the best you could do with that.
Yeah.
And the Yes record, the Fly From Here Return trip, I thought was really well done.
Yeah. Yeah. So
again, not my favorite Yes record, but there's a lot to work with in Atmos on that.
Well, everybody knows your favorite Yes record is Tales from Topographic Oceans.
Of course. Side 3 is my favorite side.
Side 3, yeah.
Side 3 all the way.
All right. So we're going to talk about another SDE bundle coming out a week after this on the 17th of July. And this is 2 Bryan Ferry records, Bete Noir and Taxi. And speaking of Robin Trower produced and played on the Taxi album. So kind of a cool segue we didn't intend.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so you didn't know about Trower's involvement?
No, I didn't know that. I knew that I think Rhett Davies did Bete Noir, and then they stopped working together after that for some reason. I did know that Clear Mountain didn't originally mix Taxi in stereo. I mean, he did the Atmos mix, so that'll be interesting, him doing a new Atmos mix of something he did, one of these Ferry records he didn't work on originally.
Yeah.
Taxi, I think it's a covers album, right? Or the majority of it is covers.
Yeah, and I have to say, not a particularly highly regarded album at that. So I'm actually super curious. I've never heard Bete Noir, but I know that one's considered to be one of his very best. And I know that Taxi is considered to be kind of a middling Bryan Ferry record.
I mean, to me, as someone who's like fairly new to all these records, I feel like Bete Noir is kind of like, if you liked Boys and Girls, like here's just more of that, which is like, that's fine with me. It's kind of like Boys and Girls is like, if you liked Avalon, like here's more of that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the one I'm excited for is there's the record Mamona or Mamuna, it's called, which is the one that came out, I think, after Taxi. To me, that was the one that had the best Atmos mix out of all of them. Like, these are all on streaming. So I'm sure inevitably they will do that one, and that will be one that's like a pre-order for me.
Yeah. Well, I did pre-order these because I can't say no to Bryan Ferry and Clear Mountain together. And I did go with the bundle because I thought, why not? You know, why not check out Taxi? And the fact that Clear Mountain didn't work on it originally, but is doing the Atmos mix does make it interesting. So who knows? Maybe it will be revealed to be a much more interesting record than any of us thought. So,
and
looking forward to this either way.
You can preview it on streaming. You know, all these Ferry Atmos mixes have been streaming since last summer.
Okay, I didn't know Taxi had been released in Atmos. So,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I thought it was just up through Momona or whatever it was. But yeah, at any rate, I'm excited for this. I mean, who knows? We might end up talking about this and the Roxy together, depending on how close they land. I think the Roxy's maybe a month before that, so maybe that doesn't make any sense. But anyway, I'm guessing we will talk about these because we did do Boys and Girls and had a lot of fun with that one. So we are now looking into the far future of early fall, September 11th. And that's the release of Quiet Sun's mainstream on CD as well as Blu-ray, including a Dolby Atmos and 5.1 mix. And oh boy, this is an interesting release. And I have to say that now that Bongo Fury's out, now that Under Wraps is out, this is the one I'm most excited for. That's upcoming. And if you know anything about this record, it has connections to both Roxy music as well as the UK Canterbury scene by way of Bill McCormick, who played for the band Matching Mole with Robert Wyatt and a few other important players. But if I'm not mistaken, Phil Manzanera's on this record. It's been a long time since I've heard it. But it is a very quirky, eccentric, what you would call esoteric progressive rock album. And we just don't have enough quirky, eccentric, esoteric prog albums in surround. Stephen W. Taylor is one man. He can't do them all. And on top of that, the tapes and budgets aren't necessarily there for all of them. But what makes this one even more exciting is apparently they found quite a bit more music that hadn't been on the original release that's been added back in. So this is kind of a reworking, a reimagining of the original album. It's an album that's been out of print for a really long time. And the version that I had before was a really bad cropped cover of just the sun. So it's great that they've reinstated the cover art. And this has got to be one of the most unexpected but exciting announcements. And I don't know who's going to be mixing it. I mean, that's usually my deal breaker is, well, okay, but who's mixing it? But in this case, I feel like it's interesting no matter who's mixing it, just because there's extra material. And presumably there's going to be some new master of the original included. So as somebody who doesn't have this album, yeah, I'll take a shot at it for $40.
Yeah, I remember when that 801 Live Blu-ray came out, which was another Phil Manzanera project. Yeah. People were saying like, "Oh, I hope they do Quiet Sun and Atmos." So, I'm excited for the people who are fans of this album, because it's great that we live in a time when labels can justify doing Atmos mixes of kind of esoteric albums like this one.
Yeah.
Or like, some of the other bands that have gotten things released in surround, like Hawkwind or Camel. Like, it's great that, the budgets are there and the interest is there for this kind of stuff to get the surround treatment. So yeah, I love Phil Manzanera, so I've not heard this record, but I'll definitely check it out.
Oh, it's wild.
Yeah.
I'm really, I'll be interested to hear your take, because it's a crazy album.
I got to hear it in stereo first.
Yeah. So this is, this is even later than the Quiet Sun. This is the 25th of September. And Sigur Ros, I think that's how you pronounce that, right? Sigur Ros?
Yeah, Sigur Ros, I think that's how you say it. Yeah.
But is this just the self-titled Sigur Ros album, or what's the name of this album?
I think it's called Takk.
That's right.
Takk.
I used to have this on CD, so I'm a little bit familiar with it.
it's the 20th anniversary edition, so it's an older record.
Yes.
And there are a number of albums that they've had mixed in Atmos, which have been up on streaming services for a while. I don't remember offhand if this is one of them or not, but from what I've listened to, like there's also one, I think there's one where like the title of the album is just like an apostrophe.
Yeah, that's the one I know better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I
so
listened to that one way more.
I remember listening to the Atmos of that one in Apple Music like a year or two ago and thinking it was a really good mix. So
it would be. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great that, I think it's BMG, like that they see there's enough interest to release this on a Blu-ray,
Yeah.
So,
I would argue that we're seeing a lot more of this lately.
I mean, it kind of started with the SDE series, right? And I feel like since then you've seen like Rhino has done a bunch of them. Sony's done a few lately, like Grace and Ziggy Stardust and Electric Ladyland. Yeah.
Yeah, I scoop them up, and I'll probably be getting this one because I think Sigur Ros would just be amazing in Atmos. I mean, they're amazing in stereo, but I just think that there's something about this kind of ambient post-rock style that would lend itself extremely well. And I'm often finding myself reaching for this kind of material lately. And my Tangerine Dream set has been played and played and played and played to death. So it'll be good to have something kind of in that similar mode, but different.
Yeah, I mean, the music is not similar, but kind of like Kraftwerk, like with this kind of music, like there's more you can do than just with a typical album when it comes to surround, because it's more about like sort of the textures and things than about like, well, you have to keep like drums and bass and guitars together or it doesn't work. Yeah. Like you have a lot more freedom to experiment with this type of music. Yeah. So I would say check out the ones on streaming if you haven't already. They're really good.
I think I may do that because I don't think I was even aware that these albums had been mixed for Atmos previously. So yeah, I'm going to have to do that. But we have a couple of records to talk about that have no release date as of yet, but are confirmed. And this is going to be really exciting to talk about. But Jethro Tull's album J-Tull.com. And oh my God, I hope I don't get YouTube banned for using that cover. But oops, what was I thinking?
Well, it's funny because like when I think it was Ian Anderson himself who let it kind of slip that this was coming out. Like there hasn't been an official label announcement, and people were like, oh, like how could they follow Under Wraps with this? Like there's all the albums that come in between because this is 1999, Under Wraps is 1984, right? Yeah. But remember, there's two series. Like there's like the Inside Out series and there's the Chrysalis Warner one. So this is part of the Inside Out series. So this is kind of like the follow up to the Christmas album reissue. Mm-hmm. So they're going back in time. Yeah. And I think this is the last one that Inside Out controls. Roots to Branches, I think, is part of the Warner series.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's probably the reason why they're doing it, because it's the last one that Inside Out has that hasn't been reissued yet. And one of the things that Ian said that was interesting in this interview was he said there's like more than like 10 bonus tracks, something like that.
Yeah.
So, I revisited this album because I hadn't heard it in a while since it's not one like I typically reach for. I'd be surprised if it really is for anyone. But
I know one person in particular who loves it, but go on.
I think it's better than its reputation seems to be. Is this as good as like any of the stuff from the 70s? No. But I think Ian's voice is better than I remember it being on this record. It's certainly better than it is on like, Zelagene or Rock Flute. I think there's some great guitar work on this album. Like that opening track Spiral is sick. Bends Like a Willow, I think, is a great tune. Hot Mango Flush, not one of my favorite Tull songs, but I think there's some good stuff in this album. And assuming that Bruce is doing the mix, as I suspect he will be, then I think it should be a lot of fun in surround.
Yeah, I'll just add my thoughts. My late stage Tull favorite is Roots to Branches, but this record in many ways kind of picks up where it left off. But it's also, I think, Tull embracing their status as being a classic rock band. That being said, I think there's one song in particular on this album that could have fit on a 70s Tull record, and it's A Gift of Roses. With that accordion sound and everything like that, I think that could have been on WarChild. Now, as for the surround element, I think a track like El Nino would be outrageously awesome. There's a few other tracks, like you mentioned, Spiral. I think Wicked Windows would be awesome, or Absent Without Leave. I'm curious about it. I mean, is it my favorite Tull record? No. But I have to say I'm more excited for this than I would be of like Rock Island or Catfish Rising.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, it's kind of like going back to the beginning. Like a lot of this album just kind of feels like a band playing in a studio.
Yeah.
Some of the songs do have like sound design, like Wicked Windows is a good example. There's like I think like programmed drums in that song. Some of them have like double tracked vocals and things, but the production style is more like the 70s records than the 80s ones. This isn't like, I mean, Under Wraps is probably the best example of like where they were really like using the studio.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, again, like, is this like a lot of people's favorite Tull album? Probably not. But, sometimes it's interesting when these quote unquote lesser albums get reissued and sometimes they get reappraised.
Yeah. And the bonus tracks are very enticing. Like there's a single from these sessions that's been released. It's got to be one of the rarest and most, the one of the hardest to find Tull artifacts. And that's the song It All Trickles Down, which I want to say was a B-side to Bends Like a Willow. And I've heard it obviously, but the only versions I've ever heard are like lossy MP3 quality copies that are very low resolution. So just the idea of having that available, even in its original mix, would be enough for me to want to pick up a reissue. Now, I have to admit that one thing that would make this reissue much more enticing to me and maybe to others would be if Secret Language of Birds were included. And I wonder what the right situation is with that. If Inside Out owns that as well. Maybe like you said, if they're going back and doing this record, maybe there are plans to do Secret Language of Birds and Rupee's Dance as standalone issues.
I mean, you would think, like, talking about Under Wraps, like the reason they put Walk Into Light on there was because it probably wasn't popular enough to warrant its own set.
Sure.
And I would assume the same would be true of Secret Language of Birds, which makes you wonder why they're not including it.
Yeah.
So, my guess, and maybe I'll look this up after and see I'm totally wrong, is maybe Secret Language of Birds is with Warner and not Inside Out, and they can't include it.
I'm pretty sure they were both Fuel 2000 releases when they came out. So they were.
So
they
then
were
that's
outside.
yeah.
Yeah.
So then that's not the case. But yeah, I agree with you because in some ways, Secret Language of Birds is a better album than .com.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, it's a great. That might be my last favorite Ian Anderson thing. I mean, I like Zealot Gene quite a bit, but usually whenever a new Tull record comes out, we say, well, it's not as good as Secret Language of Birds. It's like that.
How about Homo Eroticus? I think that was a Jacko mix. I think the surround.
Yeah. I mean, I saw that tour and I don't remember anything. So
Think It's a Brick too. I think has some okay moments.
It's all right. Yeah.
It's been a long time since I've heard it though.
Me as well. And I don't own either one of those. So, anyway, now that you mention it, if there was another album that would be cool for a Headphone Dust release, I think Thick as a Brick too.
Oh yeah. And the reason why I would mention it is because the original 5.1 has like bad mastering.
Yeah,
kind of like the first Thick as a Brick. Yeah, but I don't think they never did like a reissue of Thick as a Brick 2. Like for Thick as a Brick, you could get a replacement DVD that had the like flat transfer mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's no good sounding version of the Thick as a Brick 2 5.1 out there. Yeah.
So well, somebody who knows Steven put the bug in his ear,
Yeah, I'll ask them, whoever that is.
All right, so here's another. I guess this has been confirmed. This is like, I don't know. How do we want to introduce this next topic? I'm just going to throw it on.
Well, we know from being the avid readers of the Steve Hoffman forum that we are. or I'm an avid reader. I don't know about you. I'm probably
I am,
too
for
avid.
sure.
I'm probably too avid a reader. But
Too avid is correct.
there's some interesting stuff that gets posted on there. But there's a guy who tests the Blu-rays or DVDs for the Tull releases for Chrysalis, and I think he let it slip that they're going to be Atmos mixes of Aqualung and WarChild.
Yeah.
And all we know is that these will be released on Blu-ray, which is, because they're Atmos mixes, they have to be. And the Atmos Blu-ray editions will include the quad mixes.
Yeah.
So I think it was kind of inevitable that Steven was going to go back and mix at least some of the Tull records in Atmos. I mean, Aqualung and Thick as a Brick would have been my two guesses. I'm kind of surprised that WarChild is one of the first ones.
Yeah.
I mean, not because I don't like the album. I think it's a great record. But I would have thought for sure Thick as a Brick and Aqualung were the two kind of most popular ones, if you will. So I guess the questions I have are, for one, are these going to be like just standalone Blu-rays, or are going to be like other discs in these? Is it going to be like literally the same book sets again, but with Blu-ray instead of DVD? I don't think that's been talked about on the forum. I don't think
that's likely. No.
And my other question is, how long will this continue, and for what part of the catalog? Because I feel like if you did a standalone Blu-ray of like how many would you sell? My prediction was that some of these might be released on Headphone Dust. That's what I thought might happen. But and maybe it will.
He kind of implied that on Phil Aston's interview. He said, well, maybe something like wouldn't be good for a standalone Blu-ray, but maybe that would be a perfect Headphone Dust release.
Well, I also think, and I can say from my own experience, that it's easier to get someone like, say, I mean, for Headphone Dust, they were able to get approval from Derek Shulman to do Power and the Glory. But I think that's easier to get approval for than for the Tull records, which are controlled by Warner.
Sure. No, you're right.
Which isn't to say, they won't be able to figure it out. It would be great if they do. That would be a huge deal. The first ever major label to release Atmos content for download.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm excited about it because I think like with a lot of Stevens mixes, I think the previous 5.1 versions, these were already good, but I want to see what he'll come up with in Atmos, especially an album like WarChild with all the strings and orchestration. Like a song like The Third Hurrah would be insane in Atmos.
Yeah. Well, it's clear to me that this will be coupled with the quad mix, and that's why I'm including the Quadio graphic. This is a little thing I just threw together in about 5 minutes, so don't mind that. But think about like the Chicago 2 Blu-ray, where you can seamlessly branch between the Dolby Atmos mix, the 5.1 mix, and the quad mix. And I'm thinking that that's probably how this is going to be, and they'll probably maybe come out around the same time, because people will probably bundle them together and save shipping and all that good stuff. But it does raise some interesting questions, because these aren't the only Tull albums with quad mixes. There's, of course, Minstrel in the Gallery, as well as Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die. And that latter one raises an interesting kind of idea for the future, because the Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die album is the only Tull studio album that doesn't have a surround mix. Steven Wilson was only able to mix about half of the album, because that's all that the tapes would allow, the tape availability would allow. So they've had another 10 years, is my point, to look for these tapes. And if they have found the tapes for Too Old to Rock and Roll, Too Young to Die, that would make a perfect, I think, candidate for an Atmos upgrade, because we don't already have that album. Now, Minstrel in the Gallery, I think, would be wonderful. But as for moving forward, I lean toward the camp of preferring, if I'm going to rebuy these albums, to keep them as downloads. Number one, space, running out of space, and also cost. Now, Rhino does a good job of keeping their standalone Blu-rays at a reasonable price. So these will most likely be priced at around $25 a piece, which is similar to a Headphone Dust download.
That's what the Chicago one was as well. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it sounds like these are just going to be like the album proper, no bonus content, none of like the extra stuff that was in the book sets, which I think is fair, because, it means that the book sets still have value.
Yes.
Like
I think that's important.
and of course all the like liner notes and essays, like they won't reproduce any of that in
No.
these. Like it's purely just relating to the albums.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like personally, I'm happy these albums are being mixed in Atmos. I think,
Sure.
I think as many of these older things that Steven has already done in 5.1, if he wants to go back and do them in Atmos, like by all means. The only one that I think is maybe not conducive to an Atmos mix is This Was.
Yeah.
But even like, I don't know, Stand Up, like maybe there could be enough on that to do an Atmos mix. Even that one's kind of pushing it.
Oh, but what about Benefit with those backwards flutes floating around in your heights?
Oh yeah, that would be sick.
That would be.
I mean, you could think of an example in every album, like
Yeah.
in, I don't know, songs from the wood, like a song like Velvet Green, where you could spread all the different guitar parts around. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. And I think, like you said, like standalone Blu-ray versus download, like the price is basically the same. It's just a question of, for the people who prefer physical and like to have something, and you have to wait for it if it's physical, whereas opposed to the downloads, you get to hear it on the same day.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a little spoiled by you and by immersiveaudioalbum.com and Headphone Dust, because I really dig the immediacy. Like when Power and the Glory came out, I was listening to it that evening. So yeah, that was sweet. But we have a special announcement to talk about. And I'm sure I'll put that in the headline just to get people's attention. But what is this strange album?
I don't know. Maybe you could tell us about it, Ian. I've never heard of it before.
You never heard of this? Well, this is a group called Reefer Stramus. And you might see that they've allowed me to wear their merchandise for today's video. But this is their latest record entitled Maury's Rock Boutique. And I produced this album and mixed and mastered the stereo version, which you can currently hear on bandcamp.com, as well as streaming services. There's a CD release. There's a vinyl reissue coming. But there's also a Dolby Atmos mix in the works. And I have the privilege of sitting here today with the Dolby Atmos mixer. And I'm so excited about this and to talk about it, because when I listened to your first mix of the track Storms, I have to say I was a little bit nervous, because I thought, oh, Jonathan's mix might blow mine out of the water or be just incredibly different and amaze me. But I was really pleased that you honored my mix so carefully, but it's just been broken out. And I feel like everything's just got a little bit more of its own space, but the essential character of it has remained. And I'm so impressed. I'm giddy. I'm excited for what comes next. So Jonathan, what sort of challenges are you experiencing working on this mix so far? And I don't know how much you've done yet.
Well, as far as having more space, you only got to mix it into 2 speakers. I get to mix it into 11 speakers. So there's a lot of different places where you can put things. But that being said, I mean, some of the songs are still pretty dense.
Yes.
So like there's a song called, we just sort of nickname it T5, but it's called, Tonight 5 times is the name of the title, but we just call it T5. And that's probably one of the densest songs I've ever worked on.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff on there, and I think the album itself, the production lends itself really well to surround. There's a lot of layered harmony vocals, lots of different guitar parts. Usually, there's different like separate piano and organ. There's organ solos, guitar solos. It's very much like kind of old school prog. I hear a lot in this record. I think like there's parts of it that kind of remind me of the band Kansas.
Yeah,
if that's a fair comparison.
Well, there's a member of Kansas on the record.
Oh, well, there you go.
Joe. I can't think of his name off the top of my head. Joe Denizen. But he's the violinist now for Kansas, and he plays the solo on Cossack Stream.
Oh, cool.
But he's not the only special guest. So there's Joe from Kansas. David Jackson from Vandergraaf Generators on the record on Hell or New York City. And Rick Witkowski of the band Crack the Sky plays guitars on the Lucky Ones. And we have Lynx, the singer from a stoner metal band called Old Blood, who sings on T5. But yeah, I would agree with you. It's very much, I always say it's like it's not to say that I'm like a huge Asia fan or anything, but I always like the idea of Asia because it's like really great prog rock or fusion musicians playing songs and playing, like kind of straightforward pop music. And I think there's kind of an ethos of that. Like we use a lot of fusion players to kind of beef up the musicality of the thing. But Derek Ferguson, the composer and drummer, is very adamant about making it song based and not allowing it to get too out there or anything like that. But I was listening to this album on the test pressing for the vinyl, and I decided I really like it because, yeah, it's accessible, but it's also really weird. And there's like a lot of different kinds of influences coming through. Like there are parts.
There's that song Lakeview Samurai.
Yeah. Well, the best part of that is the guy who screams, "Watch out for that katana."
I put that in the heights.
Oh, it's my height debut. Well,
but yeah, to your point, yeah, I think it's accessible, but you can tell like they're really good players.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a great Atmos mix, and it's been fun working on it so far. And I hope we'll be able to do like a extended video about it. Maybe we could get one of the guys from the band on or something. We'll see what happens. But I think within the next probably month or so, this will be available.
Yeah, and it's going to be available through Immersive Audio Album.
Correct.
So you guys are going to have to go check that out. Jonathan, it's been a lot of fun talking with you today. We've got a lot of really interesting releases coming. It seems like just about every day I open up my email and I get excited and then suffer sticker shock, but it's okay.
Well, the funny thing is whenever we have these kind of periods of extended releases, whenever we have these periods where there's a lot of stuff coming out in Surround, people are like, well, like when's the gravy train going to end? Like, because there's a history of labels doing a lot to support Surround formats, then suddenly dropping their support. We talked about Quad in the 70s, 5.1 in the early 2000s, but then 5.1 sort of came back in the 2010s.
Sure.
But I remember like when this whole Atmos thing started in around 2021, 2020, people were like, oh, like it's, it'll be a couple years and then it'll go back to there being not that many releases, but it's just gotten bigger as the years have gone on.
It seems to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know I can speak for our bassist and singer, Jan, because he said, when I run for president, my edict is going to be to ban 2-channel mixes.
That's great.
I mean, suffice it to say, he was in favor of your work.
Yeah.
But folks, just let us know in the comments what you think. If you're excited to pick up any of these, let us know. Don't forget also to subscribe to both of our channels. If you click on the subscribe bar, you'll see that Jonathan and I are collaborating on this. And I do see my analytics in about, I would say 50 or maybe more, maybe closer to 60% of people who watch aren't subscribed. So make sure you're subscribed to me as well as immersiveaudioalbum.com. And be sure to check the description because I am going to leave Amazon affiliate links for any of these titles that are available through Amazon. And I'm also going to leave links for SDE and anything else pertinent. Before we sign off, Jonathan, did you have any final thoughts?
Nothing except that I'm excited for all these new releases.
Me too. And I'm excited that we get to work together on a project for the first time. It's something that I've been wanting to do for quite a while. So yeah, going to be good stuff. Thanks, folks, for watching, and you'll hear from us real soon. I'm off to go listen to Under Wraps because it's here.
Are you gonna live tweet the listening session?
No. All right, man. Take care. Thanks again.
See ya.
See ya.